question about the Seder is how do we make Seder relevant? Which means how do we bring it down to our level that it actually has an effect on me and on you? And the way to do that is actually written in the Seder. It's quite fascinating that it actually says how to do it, except we have got to actually activate that and do it. So if you look at the actual story of the Seder, there's this Avodim Ma'in Lefayim Mitzrayim, we were slaves. That's how we start Magid I'm talking about. And then we have one paragraph telling the actual story. And then right away, we tell a story of people who told the story. Ma'aseh B'Rabbi Eliezer, there were these 5 Tanoim who were sitting down in Bnei Brak. They were telling the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. And then there's Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, who said that he was 70 years old, even though he was 18. And we haven't got to the actual story yet. And then we have something else to say, that there's 4 sons at the Haggadah. And then we speak out when you should say it. And a little bit later on, we begin the actual story. So there's a lot of focus in the discussion on the story about the story. And what the Haggadah is telling us is that don't tell a story of something that happened many years ago, but rather tell an actual story today. Keneged Abba Avadim Divrei means that there's 4 sons in the Haggadah. 4 sons are 4 different experiences of how you can have the Haggadah. You might discover that you are all 4, that you have 4 windows open on your desktop, in your mind, and in your heart. One part of you is a chacham, the other part is the opposite of a chacham. And then just Tom and Elisha, they're just there by you, and you might even have the 5th son inside you who doesn't want to be present at the Seder at all. And all of them are right inside you. And in order to experience the Haggadah, what you want to do is clarify what you want to get from the Seder. What do you want to achieve? So what I want to do is give you an example of this. Let's try an exercise, even though there's a lot of people in this room. Let's see if anyone can share with us. You don't have to get too personal, but let's say you want to say, what do you want to work on that should change in your life? Is there something that you want to change, that if you had Hashem make some magic, Hashem do something and change this? Do you ever sit there and say, Hashem, just change this? And if you do,
like which boundaries do you want to get?
Exactly. What's your Mitzrayim? That means, are you a Chacham, a Rasha, a Tom, or an Eined Elisha? Who are you and what are you thinking about now? If you are clear about what you want to get from the Seder, then you actually stand a chance of getting it. If not, you're going to be sitting there wondering why everyone's telling these Vertlach and all the little kids are speaking in something, and when you're a teenager, it's irrelevant to you. And you don't have any Vort to say. I don't know why, but teenagers don't come with Vertlach at the Seder.
Yeah,
Because what?
they don't really teach us so much Pesach.
Oh, we don't even learn about Pesach. Okay, right. But I'm going to venture to say that perhaps the most important part of the Seder, the most important guest at the Seder is a teenager. Certainly the most important guest at the Seder always is you. So let's try it out. Would anyone care to share an example of what you, just what you think that people need to get out of today? But real, yeah, go ahead. Just give me some volume.
You mean like a limitation?
Well, what?
When you say Mitzrayim, you mean like a limitation?
Yeah.
Something that's holding us back? Okay.
Something holding me back. I know it's holding me back very clearly. And I'm crystal clear about what I want to achieve. If I want to achieve something, then I can know how to achieve it. But the first part of the Haggadah is Avodim Mayinu Lefayim Mitzrayim. Who? Not Avodim Hoyu Avoseinu Lefayim Mitzrayim. It's not our fathers were slaves to Pharaoh in Mitzrayim. It's We were slaves to Paro in Mitzrayim. Not only that Paro way back when, but rather we were in a state of slavery to our own Paro, the king of our own limitations. And by Yotziyenu Hashem Elokeinu Mitzrayim. Now here's the answer to all your problems. Translate these words. By Yotziyenu Hashem Elokeinu Mitzrayim. What does that mean? Hashem, our God, took us out of Mitzrayim. So what do we do about it? Nothing. Hashem did the work, right? But you want to know how you get out of your Mitzrayim? Very simple. Allow Hashem Elokeinu, and then you'll be out of your Mitzrayim. If Hashem is Elokeinu, if you feel God as relevant to you, Hashem Elokeinu, God relevant, then you are no longer in Mitzrayim. The part that you need to do is realize how Hashem is relevant to you. And what's amazing about it is that you actually can feel and experience a real exodus from Mitzrayim. So what do you think? Let's talk more general if we have to. What would you say are the number one issues that facing all the people in this room right now? What kind of Mitzrayims are facing us? Not the world, not other people, here. Anyone? What? Ourselves. Okay, let's get more detailed. What does it mean ourselves? What? What is it? Thoughts. What about thoughts? Right. Like, why is it that nobody in this room, I don't think, would actually lift their hands right now and say what's really bothering them and what they really want to work on? Because you don't want to get too personal, but why not? Oh, so what are you scared of? Aren't we scared of being judged? Why are we scared of being judged? What bothers us? What? It hurts your ego. So what do we do about that? Just raise our hands and say exactly how we feel? Okay, so what's the solution? Do you think it's true that a lot of us today feel an emptiness in our lives? And even though our lives might be very full, but we feel a deep emptiness and a lacking, and we often feel like we're missing some fundamentals. We're missing some just feeling good. And when you don't feel good, what happens in that empty space? There's a beautiful verse of the Alter Rebbe on this week's parsha, actually, in Tazria, in Nikutei Torah, and what he says is that the pasuk says, "Tachas asher le'avato es Hashem enegecha b'simcha v'tuv levav." Why does the whole teichacha come about? Why does all the bad things happen? Why do they come about? The answer is because you didn't serve Hashem out of simcha. So he says, I don't get it. Why is it that Hashem should punish you for not being b'simcha? And his answer is, Hashem. Who said? What is it? You're saying simcha is a choice, right? So why would Hashem punish you for not being b'simcha? Yeah, but why is it so severe a punishment of all the teichacha for not being b'simcha? Very good. So the Alter Rebbe explains, basically, that Hashem doesn't punish you at all for not being b'simcha. Life, existing, punishes you for not being b'simcha. It's a consequence. It's a reality. If you live without simcha, without a deep inner happiness, what happens is you don't feel Hashem in your life. And if you don't, you are open to all negativity that comes from lack of simcha. So it's not a punishment for not being b'simcha. It's just the reality of not being b'simcha. And the question really is, how do you become b'simcha? What? Oh? So let's say, and that's my example, by the way, you can give your own one, but let's say you want to be Simcha and you're sitting at the Seder and you're saying, I'm feeling very down and I want to be happy and I don't know how to be happy. You think the Seder could bring you some happiness?
Yes.
How?
You can attain happiness at any moment.
What?
You can attain happiness at any moment. It's all about you and your perceptions.
So there's a focal point in Yetzias Mitzrayim. When did Bnei Yisrael get out of Mitzrayim? What happened? What was the moment that the Torah tells us they got out of Mitzrayim? It's in the Haggadah. What does it say? The moment they got out of Mitzrayim. Not Kriyas Yamsuf, a lot before that. When they got ready. When they believed Hashem would take them out. Actually, even before that. Here's the way the story goes. The story goes that there was Moshe Rabbeinu was in Mitzrayim. In Midian, I'm sorry. And when he was in Midian, so the Pasuk says, one day Hashem appeared to him in a burning bush. Remember that?
Yes.
And Hashem said to Moshe, I'm going to take you out of Mitzrayim. You need to take Bnei Yisrael out of Mitzrayim. And he gave him all the signs, and that was the moment that Moshe was chosen. That's the beginning of Yetzias Mitzrayim. What prompted Hashem to act in that capacity? What caused that moment? So the Torah says, "Vayeonchu b'nei Yisrael min ha'avoda vayizoku, v'ta'al shavosam el ha'elekim min ha'avoda." And what happened was, what? Hashem was what? Hashem listened. Why didn't Hashem listen beforehand? Because it wasn't the time yet, okay? But it wasn't 400 years now either. And he hastened the Geula by lowering the amount of time from 400 to 210 years. When Hashem first appeared to Avraham Avinu at Bris Ben Abasarim, what he told him was, Avram, you're so awesome. You're so amazing. You're doing such a great job. I'm going to reward you. What's the reward going to be? The reward's going to be 400 years of hard labor. And Avraham says, thank you so much. I really always wanted to be in hard labor. And, I can't think of anything better. Thank you, Hashem. Why is that a gift to Avraham Avinu for all the wonderful things he's doing to tell him you're going to be in bondage? That's not fair. What Hashem told Avraham was this. He says, Avraham Avinu, you are trying your hardest to find a connection to me. And I know and I get it that you really, really are trying hard, and I appreciate it. But you should know that you are a human being. And as a human being, you are very limited, severely limited, in your ability to find a connection to me. And therefore, as such, what I'm saying to you, Avraham, is that the only way for man to connect to God is by undergoing a total transformation of self. You have to let go completely of your previous self. And when you do, you will find me. You'll find Hashem. And when you do that, for that, it's worth everything. Because finding God means you'll find a completely new you. That's what Hashem told Avraham. So the process of going through Mitzrayim was all to reach a point whereby you're ready to talk to Hashem from the innermost part of your soul, and your whole neshama is completely enmeshed and talking to Hashem. And when did Bnei Yisrael achieve that? When the Golus got unbearable, and they turn to God and they say, God, no one can save us but you. Hashem, help me, get me out of this. What?
They weren't crying before.
They weren't crying on the same level they were crying now. It was a cry from the bottom of your heart. Hashem, I cannot take this. And it was not just crying, it was turning to Hashem, a realization that only Hashem can do it. Now, I want to just point out something like this. They believed Moshe the second he came. The Pasuk says, "Vayamein ha'am."
Yeah, but then.
Moshe was worried they wouldn't listen to him actually.
Yeah, but then wasn't that like after he went and they said, why you just made it worse, whatever, and then.
Correct. That was Dasan Vaviram who were worried about that. And that was, yes, and that was a difficult moment that came later on. It wasn't like you get out of Mitzrayim in 1 second.
Yeah, but like once he went as far and now he made it harder, like a lot.
Okay, hold on. Good question. Let me bring it down to our level, right? When you live life, we try all the time, we try to build ourselves experiences of being comfortable and tranquil and happy. We always want to be happy, and we always try to be happy without Hashem in our lives. That means we try to tell ourselves things are good. It's okay. What's good? I have fill in the blank. I have a family. I have a job. I have, as you go through life, I have this, I have that, I achieved that. And any one of the things you have, it feels like, okay, now I don't need Hashem. Hashem, I'm good. Everything's fine. Imagine like, you know that moment when you, I just heard a guy saying a story that he was on an airplane, a small plane, and the pilot couldn't have been too much of a chacham, but he got up and there was a lot of bumping in the plane ride. And he got up and he said that, everybody, our weight in the plane is too much, too great. And I'm very concerned that the wings are going to clip off any moment. In midair, mind you.
Whoa.
So this fellow, a passenger in the plane, small plane, the passenger in the plane turns to the guy next to him. Like the guy next to him was telling him the whole time about his how he has an organization that helps people pay tuition. And he was listening and whatever, So he's like, turns to the guy next to him and he says, listen here, if we make it alive, I am pledging to you right now, to your organization, $10,000.
Wow.
When we land safely, I'm giving you 10 grand for landing safely. That's my pledge to Hashem. He's like, I'm sitting over there, the plane's about to crash. I feel like, if the wing falls off, that's not good. And I'm feeling that I'm totally in the hands of Hashem, and that $10,000 won't mean much to me if that wing, falls off. And a few minutes later, Hashem helped, and the plane lands. What do you think happens to this guy when the plane lands? He's like, 10 grand, it wasn't really a problem. It's just a few minutes or whatever. The pilot was just joking. And the pledge of $10,000, like, okay, 2,000, 5,000, whatever, something like that. This guy actually went and gave the full $10,000. When you land, you feel like you're on the ground on a hard surface. Hashem, I'm good. I don't need you right now. Thank you. But when you're in the middle of the flight, in the middle of there, it's amazing to be in, by the way, in midair. When you're in midair in the plane, you ever been on a plane like it bumps in midair? And what do you think about the pocket of air? You're like, Hashem, I am totally in your hands right now. I feel that there's nothing I can do. But when you're on the ground, like now, you're sitting on the ground, right? And you feel the ground, it's a good feeling, right? When you feel the ground, it feels like everything's okay. Guess what? It's not so okay now either. Anything can happen any moment, any second. What you want to do is realize how much you need Hashem all the time. And what happens to us is when we live in that kind of zone of always needing the power of Hashem in our lives, we let go. And when you let go, Hashem's power takes you over. So this is not like a hypothetical kind of a thing. This is a real power that each of us is able to use in our lives. And what you want to do through the Seder, through this whole process, is say to Hashem, okay, I'm one of the Arba Banim. In order for the Seder to work, I have to say to you, Hashem, what is my issue? Hashem, I'm a chacham. What's a chacham? A chacham is like a kid who's sitting over there. All he wants to say is his Dvar Torah. The Rasha, I'm not sure that's true, but sometimes the teenager's feeling like a Rasha. Like, I don't think who needs this whole Seder over here? What do we need it for? And then you sometimes feel like, hey, maybe, like, I don't know, what am I going to gain by sitting at the Seder? But what happens if a person has, let's just say, for example, anxieties? Ever had that problem? You think teenagers have that issue nowadays? Anxieties, worrying about the world falling apart. What is the solution to the worry about the world falling apart? Because it could be it is falling apart. So how do you get the bitachon? How do you activate it? Simcha, very good. How do you activate Simcha? It isn't something that's going to happen automatically. It's going to be hard work on your part. And what's going to happen is every moment of the day, you're going to feel like the world's falling apart. And then what happens is, every so often, the plane goes through that pocket and the wings of the plane are about to fall off. As soon as you're able to cry out to Hashem, Hashem, I need your help. The second you realize in life you need Hashem's help is the second that Hashem begins to help you. And you actually feel the power of Hashem coming down into your life and actually helping you and bringing out, right, your power. So to say the table, sounds like you learned about the matzah, right? What's the matzah? What is the Hasidic version of what matzah is? The bread of Emunah. And what does that mean? Why do you need to eat the bread of Emunah?
To remember.
To what?
To remember.
So there's two explanations. The Sefer HaChinuch says that when you eat the matzah is meichle di mehemenusa. It's the food of Emunah, meaning it triggers off Emunah. We have a program by us in our neighborhood that's called Operation Mitzvah Share in Flatbush. And what it does is, basically, the goal of Mitzvah Share is to get people to give out matzahs to other people. So everyone's religious, everyone's from. So you say, okay, you guys give out matzah to other people. And it's fascinating how people feel shy and bashful about approaching the guy next to them at work, like a co-worker or a client, and saying, here, take some matzah and eat it. On Friday night, April 15, whatever, eat it after 8 p.m. and it'll be great. What happens is, as they do it, as people do it, and they get results, it's quite amazing. So generally, what's the result that comes about? If you give it out to a non-from person, you give out a matzah, you know what they feel? You sit there with a matzah, and, Seder sometimes consists of, you want to tell them, eat it after 8 p.m., because otherwise the Seder begins at 6 p.m., and you didn't even get to the matzah before by the right time. But you put the matzah on the plate, and there might be other stuff on the plate, and it might not be so kosher for Pesach. There might be some non-Pesach stuff, maybe non-kosher stuff, who knows what. But then comes Freddie, and he says, hey, my coworker gave me this stuff. And there's an old lady sitting at the table, and she says, oh man, that's shmir matzah. And I remember the shmir matzah from my Bobby back in the shtetl when she came to America, and she used to have the shmir matzah. And then they like, wow, how did you get it? Yeah, the regular Manischewitz matzah is made by machine. And this one's made by hand. And they start describing it. Yeah. You know what it sparks? A conversation of Emunah. That's what it does. It sparks a conversation about what it means to be Jewish. So the Sefer HaChinuch says, what it means that matzah is meichle di mehemenusa is that matzah sparks off a conversation about Emunah. It's the food that when you put it on the plate, on the Seder plate, what happens is people start to talk about Emunah. And that's true. But the Rebbe Maharash explains it a little bit differently. What he says is, his line is, "Az me'est matzah, estmen elokus." So matzah is the one food that Hashem says, it's the only food today that we eat today that is a mitzvahs asay de oiraisa. And what Hashem says is, eat matzah, and what are you going to get? Emunah. Now, how does that work? You ever tried with a little 1-year-old, and you sit with a little baby, and you get her to say your name, and it's like a whole argument in the house. Whose name is she going to say first? And everyone's fighting about the name. And thankfully, the easiest word to say of all words is Abba. So if your name is Razel, you're going to have to wait a long time for your name to be said. If your name is Chaya, that's a lot easier to pronounce. And so, in my home, we always have this issue. And everyone's fighting over who's going to vying for that position. And I always win. Abba. Abba's easy. A and Ba. You know what happens with Abba? What's interesting is the baby starts saying Abba long before they're actually saying Abba. They just say Baba. And then you're saying, oh, she's calling me. She's not calling you. She doesn't even know you exist. She's just saying Baba because that's the closest thing to say. When does a little baby shift from realizing, it's like an amazing moment, when you realize, you know what's happening over here? When I blabber and say Abba, that guy gets this smile on his face, and he picks me up and he gives me such a hug and a kiss, and I feel so good. And it seems like he's actually like something that I blabbered actually means something to him. And it's an amazing moment because every baby goes through this, right? I mean, if you're a baby, you've never heard of the concept of language. Like, what's the difference between first language and second language? Second language is boring. Someone taught you a language, a first one, and you're like, okay, I'm learning Spanish. Not learning Spanish, you're just translating the words you know in English to another language. So water becomes agua. What's the difference between water and agua? Nothing. It sounds cool. It's like you know another language. Nothing much to it. But imagine you don't even know that there's such a thing as language. And so you take this stuff called water, maim, and you're supposed to know that when that person says water, they mean this stuff. You get what an incredible brain power you need to have to learn first language? The Rabbi Rashab in the Maimer explains that there's actually 4 levels of intellect. Doimim, Tsemeach, Chai, and Medaber. Within your brain. And he goes through what each one is. So each one can be brilliant, actually. But Doimim is when you're learning inanimate. It's like the intellect required to paint artwork. It's quite incredible if you understand it. Semeach is sciences. When you become a scientist, that's Semeach. What's Chai? The example he brings of Chai is a baby learning how to say Abba, how to speak. The brain power required to figure out that that's such a thing called language. What? Medaber is when you learn about Elokus, Hasidus. That's what he says. Different conversation. But Chai Shebeseichel, bigger.
Chai is like animal.
Yeah. Because your animals can move around, can walk, can go places. It's pretty. Right. Well, we won't go into the details of it, but the point is that it's absolutely incredible to learn how to speak. The brain power required to learn how to speak is more than any scientist ever uses and any artist ever uses. For some odd reason, after we learn how to speak, from there we go straight down. We stop using our intellect. we stop using our seichel. But that moment is absolutely incredulous, because did you notice it? Like when a baby learns how to speak, like they like light up. What?
They're so excited.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Who's more excited? You or them? But yeah, they say, and they start saying words, and then they call you out. They call another name. It's the most incredible moment. And it actually happens. It's like it takes a while to reach that moment, but the moment is just like this, an absolute like eureka moment. What happens at that moment? When you realize that adult can be called a name. So this stuff that I'm going ba 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 is actually a language, and when you say it to them, they get excited. So the Gemara says that Eina Tinok Yodea Likrois Abba Ad Sheyitain Tam Dogon. That a child will never learn how to say Abba before they've tasted the taste of grain. A child needs to taste grain, and once they taste grain, then they can say Abba. So what that means is, if a child is nursing only from their mother, that's great. You will not be able to speak. Gemara is saying, in order to speak, you have to eat solid food, grain, like the mashed potatoes or carrots or something like that. What?
The smarter they will be.
I don't know. I mean, I think they say mother's milk is very important, but I don't think you'll see any baby speaking when they're only nursing. I think the reality on the ground is that, I mean, the Gemara says this is the fact, but you learn when you actually eat the solid food. Around that time, you begin to learn how to speak. Now, here comes the Hasidic part of this. Imagine now for a moment that you could go back to being that baby. What would it be like? Can you picture it? You're the baby. You don't know how to speak. You don't even know what they want from you. You don't know the concept of language or anything. And you're just the baby. And then the baby's being told, someone is telling the baby, Abba. Someone's sitting over there, Abba. Abba. Come on. Abba. And the baby's looking like, what do you want? Eina Tinok, the Alter Rebbe explains this part. Eina Tinok Yodea Likrois Abba. You know who the Tinok is? You and me. We're the baby, and we're learning to say Abba. Now, who's Abba? Hashem. And you'll say, I know Hashem already. I know Abba. I'm from. I do mitzvahs, I daven, I learn. I know what you're talking about. I know what Emunah is. Emunah is believe in Hashem. And he's like, no. I have a whole new reality for you. And by the way, every year I have a brand new reality for you. I have a whole new way that you could look at this whole idea of Emunah, and you could discover a connection to God that you never knew existed previously. You could pull off what Bnei Yisrael pulled off in Mitzrayim. Vayonchu Bnei Yisrael min ha'avoda vayiz'oku, batal shavasam elo elekim. When you call to God, Hashem actually answers you. What you discover is you actually build a relationship with Hashem that you never knew existed before. Because you know what happens? When you discover Emunah, what does Emunah mean? Did you ever believe that Emunah is a force that can get you everything you want in life? That can get you absolute happiness? That Yiddishkeit is not something that's being sold to you as a, like, you need to do this, and you should be doing that, and you ought to do this, but rather Yiddishkeit is that through connecting to Hashem, your life becomes absolutely unbelievable and amazing. And it's nothing to do with what everyone else thinks, it's to do with you. And the whole way we're being taught Judaism is all cultural. It's like, you better dress a certain way, and you better look a certain way, and you better do this thing and do that, or else. Repercussions. And it's nothing to do with any of that. What is Yiddishkeit? It's a process by which you can find a relationship with Hashem. And when you, every moment of your life, when you're able to just like let go, Hashem is revealed to you inside you and appears to you. What's the Seder table about? It's about you saying to Hashem, here's the problem that I have. I feel some anxieties. And I'm going to eat the matzah tonight. And I'm not just going to eat the matzah, I'm going to eat the matzah. I'm going to allow Hashem's presence into my life and thereby going to make miracles. Let me tell you a quick story about a guy who made a miracle. You want to hear a miracle story? This young kid comes to my house. He's a single parent kid and a very, very special kid. And we have a whole program for kids from single parent homes. And this kid happened to be by me. So we wanted to get the kid out. He needed desperately to get to yeshiva. It was urgent. And for 5 years, we're trying to get him into yeshiva, but we can't because he's only 9, 10, 11, 12. Now he turns 14. So at 14, it's easy to get you out to yeshiva. And we're shipping him off to a place. So he gets accepted at the yeshiva out of state, Texas. And he gets in there. And he comes over to me excited as ever. And he tells me, he says, I want you to know, Rabbi, he says, I was accepted into this and this yeshiva. And, I'm very excited. And I was like, wow, that's so beautiful. So I went to my wife and I said to her, just a simple little question. Who's paying, how much is tuition? She says, tuition there is $24,000. I said, oh, great. They have absolutely no money. So I'm like, okay. Yeah. I said, what's the plan? She says, I don't know. What is the plan? So I went to the kid and I said to him, everything's taken care of. He immediately understood that I was talking about tuition. He says, my mother told me that I have nothing what to worry about. Hashem will take care of me. As he always has, Hashem will take care of me. Now they have nobody in the world, just him and his mom. So I'm like, okay. Admittedly, my bitachon was not the greatest. Then comes Erev Yom Kippur. Erev Yom Kippur, I went to my in-laws for the meal. It was about 12:30, Erev Yom Kippur. And someone sends me a Simcha of the Rebbe from Vav Tishrei Tovshin Tes Zayin. That's before Rebbe Tzidkana passed away. And in the Simcha, he says there, if you want Hashem to take care of you on Yom Kippur, and why should he? Why do you deserve it? Find a Jew that you don't know, never met him, never will meet him again, and ask them, what do you need for Yom Tov, for the whole Sukkot? What do you need? And then give them everything they need. And if you give them what they need, Hashem will give you everything you need. So I thought that was a pretty cool Simcha. So I made a little video explaining what it was. 30 seconds, enough for the WhatsApp status, And then I sent it out together with a Simcha. I sent it out to, 700-800 people. And I sent it out. And what happened next was amazing. People who are not Hasidim in any way just like jumped at the opportunity. And they were just like, one guy told me I was in a grocery store and I met someone in the grocery, and I asked him, what do you need? They said, nothing. Then I walked out of the grocery store, another guy said, how much you need? They gave him $200. And I said, actually, I need 2,000, to cover. He walks across the street to the ATM, gave him the money. People just one after another, unbelievable stories. And some people started asking me, do I know anyone? And I said, yeah, I do. And I started giving out to families. When I called the family, how much you need? 2,000, 4,000. One lady said, I've never had a sukkah in my life. From family, and we gave them all the money they needed. So my wife sees all this going on, and I wasn't paying attention to anything going on in the meal, everyone else. And she says to me, no, so you know this kid, and he needs the tuition. And why don't you give him? I said, well, for two reasons. Number one, because the Simcha says for Yom Tov what they need, not for tuition. And number two, it's not 2,000 or 4,000, it's 24,000, a bit of a difference. She said, yeah, but there's a problem and the guy needs it, so why don't you just use the opportunity? So I said, okay. The next guy called me up. He said, do I know anyone? I said, listen, there's a kid. He needs $24,000. And, I know it's a lot of money, but whatever. But I'm just saying, if you want to help a kid out, the guy listens. He says, okay, I don't have the money myself, but Took him 10 seconds to think about it. He says, I'm going to fundraise $24,000. I said, wow, that's pretty impressive. Anyway, he started fundraising. That Friday night, 3 days after, on Friday night, his sister who was helping him fundraise comes over to my wife by Lichtbenchen to say thank you. She's like, thank you for what? Thank you for the opportunity to raise money to pay tuition for a kid I never know, never will know, never met, never will meet, and to give him everything he needs. It feels great and amazing. So anyway, a few days later, the kid's in yeshiva and tuition is already covered and whatever, he's already covered probably 60-70% of the tuition. The kid comes over to me when he leaves, right after Sukkot. He comes over to me and he says, I'm come to say goodbye. And he says, see, Rabbi, what were you worried about? I told you, my mother said, Hashem will take care of me. Now, he didn't know the whole story. I'm like, wow, that was pretty cool. Pretty impressive. So I called this guy up. I said, I want you to know what just happened. You know what happened? Basically, the kid asked Hashem to help him. He said, Hashem will take care of me. And Hashem needed to take care of him. So he put you in the middle of this. And you think that I don't know what you think, but you were just bringing Hashem down. Hashem was taking care of this kid. And all this kid knows about was Hashem was taking care of him. But quick sequel to the story, which happened about 3-4 weeks ago. Well, 6 weeks by now. So long story short, but basically the mother wanted to pull the kid out of yeshiva. And it was the wrong thing to do. It was just issues, whatever. But no, the kid needed to be in yeshiva. And we were working very hard. The kid should stay in yeshiva and she should not pull him out. Poor kid hasn't finished 1 year, his whole schooling, because he's always been pulled out for something that went wrong. Nothing went wrong. So anyway, this one guy from whatever, Hatzalah, calls me up and he says, I know about this case. The mother didn't have enough money, so she flew out there to Texas and she got a ticket to go. Then she didn't have any money to pay for she says, but she's staying by a family and the family is helping her get the kid out. If you could locate that family and talk to them and ask them, they might help the kid to stay in yeshiva. I said, okay. He said, do you know the family? I said, what are the chances? I know some family in Texas. I don't know anyone over my block sometimes. He gives me a name of the family. And I was like, wow, OMG. So what happened was there was a Shabbaton about 2 months ago, and I spoke at the Shabbaton. And I think I've told the story about 150 times. I know. And nobody asked me at the end of the story, did you finish paying the tuition? In all the times I told the story, one single solitary time at this Shabbaton, at the Fabreng, there were 800 people at the Shabbaton. At that particular Fabreng, there were about 25 people. And one guy at that time comes over to me after and he says, did you cover the tuition? And I said, no. He said, okay, I want to put in $1,000 towards it. And Motzei Shabbos, he gives me a check of $1,000. This guy was a guy, I've known him for 10 years because they ask me shaylas all the time. I never met them. First time I met them was here. And the guy, Pashut, he says to me, he gave $1,000. This guy tells me, I don't know. I didn't know him where it was from. Nothing. The family they're staying by that she randomly found, stam in the middle of nowhere, happened to be this exact family. I called the guy up and I said, I just want you to know something. That I told the story many, many times, and there's one guy of all that time, and I first time I met him, and that guy decided to give the tuition. That was you. So the kid staying in this place is you, and you have the power now. You know the story. You have the power to get him back into yeshiva. Shabbos was 5:22 that week. He called me 5:23. He called me 5:22 to say, you should know, 24 hours, I got the kid back into yeshiva. And I was thinking to myself, you see, the kid said that Hashem takes care of me. And Hashem took care of him. Hashem turned around the whole world to make sure the kid's taken care of. Point is, when you eat the matzah, you think about Emunah and you allow Hashem to run your life. And if you run your life with the bitachon and Emunah at its core, and you allow Hashem to run it, what you'll discover is that you can make absolute, incredible miracles, and all the anxieties and worries fall away. You sit at the Seder table, you say, here's my issue, Hashem, I need your help. I'm going to read the Haggadah to learn how Hashem takes care of me all the time. And I'm going to think about it and internalize it. And through that process, what you discover is that you will escape your limitations and you'll see how Hashem takes care of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye, everyone. See you on